This is Election 2021, the Las Cruces School Board Forum for District 3. Thanks for being with us. Our rules today are simple. The candidates have 1 minute to answer each question, and they should not mention an opponent in their answer. I'm joined by David Rice of the League of Women Voters of Southern New Mexico, and our candidates are Eloy, Francisco, Macha, Camborda, and Robert Wofford. Eloy, we're going to start with you for the first question. Tell us why you are running for the Board of Education, and if elected, what will be your priorities?
Great, Fred. Good evening. Thanks everybody for your this opportunity. My name is Eloy Francisco Macha Camborda. As a grandfather, a father, a brother, mother, a parent, I'm enthused about making an impact in my community. My priorities is that of ensuring that our students are prepared for their future endeavors. My granddaughter that was recently born, I'm looking forward to her having a successful education career in our school systems.
Thank you. Bob.
Educators need a voice in the decision-making of this district. Teachers, support professionals, they're on the front line of teaching, and what happens in the classroom is absolutely critical. It's the linchpin for success in our schools. Sadly, 50% of the teachers who start the profession about years, and we need to address that. And schools don't function in a vacuum. Parental involvement is critical for children's education, so not just in the early grades, but all the way through. When we promote community school partnerships, then everyone wins. Parents, community, and kids feel valued, and they understand their place in the community is one which we consider important. And so any program that promotes engagement of students, creates lifelong learning, is what I support in education, and that's why I'm running for the school board.
Thank you. David.
Okay, this is for Bob. What experiences or skills have prepared you to serve as a board member? Bob?
I have taught for 34 years. I've taught for 34 years at Cruces High and taught the entire spectrum of the English department's classes. Most recently, working as an AES facilitator years of my teaching. I've been department head to hold a curriculum specialist or leadership license. Almost 20 years ago, two other teachers and I wrote a grant that got $250,000 to integrate arts into our school. I've been a hard worker my entire career. I worked on district committees. I sponsored the Amnesty International Club at Cruces High for over 30 years. And about the last 10 to 12 years of teaching, I sponsored the Gay Straight Alliance. If I'm elected to the school board, I'll be the first openly LGBT member of that board. I also consult for the college board, teaching teachers how to teach advanced placement English through workshops and summer institutes. I also work part-time for the National Math and Science Initiative. So
thank you very much. We're out of time. Eloy.
Thank you, David, for that question. My experience has been in over the last 25 years as an IT specialist and IT technologist. I'm an innovator at heart. I'm involved in advanced research development in the IT field. Recognizing the future of where technology is headed, I believe it prepares me to be able to impact our school board by ensuring that we provide some policies and some guidelines on the direction of where our school systems are headed. We have to recognize here in New Mexico, we have a lot of gaps in technology. Over the last 18 months, we have felt that with the online classes and this hybrid model that we're embarking. Technology is going to continue to advance. I believe I'm suitable in that position to be able to provide impactful, meaningful policies specific to the future of our students and prepare them for what the future of work looks like.
Okay, we're going to start with you, Eloy, on this next question. How does the board member role differ from the role of superintendent or administration?
School board members need to provide sound policies and sound regulations and leadership, if you will, for the school district. We are stewards of the school system. We need to ensure that we are also representing the community. School board members here in Las Cruces Public Schools 5 districts represent each of those, each of the school board members represent their specific district, and ensuring that the community members of that district, educators, parents, grandparents, community leaders, provide that sound feedback with regards to where the direction is of our school board system. That being said, we also have fiduciary responsibility from a budget perspective, such that all of the resources given to the school district are directly felt in our classrooms.
Thank you. Bob.
The school board sets policy and advises the superintendent, hires and fires that person, and then steps out of the way for the day-to-day workings of the school. It's the superintendent, the administrators, the teachers, the custodians, the clerical workers, the substitutes, everyone who is down in the trenches on a day-to-day basis that does the real work of the school. But we advise the superintendent and set the tone for where the district is going. We certainly monitor the budget, and that is a critical need because that's a massive thing. And when budgets are not monitored well, then some waste can come in. We also oversee fair and equitable employment, hiring, and practices, but mostly we set the tone for the district. I've talked to school boards for over 30 years during public input time, and I've voted in every school board election for 40 years. And so I see the job of the school board as a long-term duty, a board that sets vision through its policies for the district.
Thank you, Bob. We're out of time. Bob, we're going to start with you on this next question. Should the school board take action on civics education, including understanding of democracy and voting rights? Explain.
Absolutely, they should. An educated population is critical for democracy. And right now, throughout our country, voting rights are under attack, or are being attacked. And so engaging disinterested and disaffected students who are tired of this pandemic is critical. And we have a big job as educators to re-engage students in learning, because a year out of a child's or a teen's life seems like eternity to them. We must teach students how to distinguish fact from fiction on the internet, to teach digital democracy, to examine the messy discourse our country has gone through for the past two and more centuries. Benjamin Banneker's letter to Thomas Jefferson about slavery, for instance, occurs to me. And he asked Thomas Jefferson straight on, you hold slaves, and yet you are asking, or you are writing about equality for all. That's a great starting point, analyzing that rhetoric and then coming up to what we are engaged in today, talking about those same issues.
Thank you, Bob. Eloy.
Yes, for a great question, a very timely question. It is one of the main primary purposes of our school systems to ensure that all of our students are civically educated. What does that mean? It's understanding the foundations of this country, as written by our founders, the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights. What's very telling is in the Declaration of Independence, a couple of interesting items that come to mind to ensure that our students are aware of this, is that all citizens here of this country, and really quite everybody here in this world, are endowed by certain inalienable rights by their creator, which include life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Those aspects need to be properly taught to our students so that they understand what their liberty rights, what their freedoms are here in this country. With that, we need to ensure that they are engaged civically once they turn 18 years old by understanding and explaining to them voting, what that means, how they can be effective and very impactful in expressing their voice in our system of government, and so that they can also participate to make the right impacts. Over the last 60 years, we have seen a lot of impacts of the civil rights movement, and we also need to ensure that our students appreciate the evolution and how much change, positive change, our country has gone through since its inception.
Okay, Eloy, we're going to start with you on this next question. Explain your position on charter schools. Do you see positive or negative impacts of these schools?
Charter schools are a great option for our parents to have at their availability and available to them as a way to have their students be provided another education form or another means of absorbing education. This day and age, education vehicles, if you will, are rising up. We see this through the online forums such as Coursera. We're seeing this through the online rise of education delivery, along with hybrid options. So having charter schools at the disposal of the school district is a great choice for our parents. That being said, we need to hold all of the education delivery vehicles that the school district has to the same standards or higher standards. At the end of the day, we're talking about delivering high quality academic services to all of the students that the school district serves.
Thank you. Bob.
Well, in New Mexico, charter schools must comply with all the laws that public schools have to regarding special ed and other things, and that is a good thing. I believe in charter schools. They promote innovation. I think we have about 25,000 kids in New Mexico currently in charter schools, and Albuquerque Public Schools has many more charters than we do. Charter schools can serve a niche population. For instance, Alma de Arte here in Las Cruces is a charter school which has carved out a place in arts education. Many schools across New Mexico have that foundation for their charter, and some have a STEM foundation. But the greater diversity of schools we have, then the more opportunities for kids who may not fit in a large public school to find their place where they belong. I do not support private charter schools, which are for profit in New Mexico, because I believe we don't have enough funds going to the public schools to divert to private charter schools. Fortunately, that is not the case in New Mexico.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Our next question, and we will start with you on this, Bob. What would you do to promote parental involvement with the schools?
Well, the key is communication with parents. We have district advisory councils, we have student advisory councils, we have welcome schools, and we need to expand these opportunities. I think COVID has caused us all to kind of get into our corners, and discourse has fallen off. It's a bit Zoom. And so over the course of my career at LCHS, we have recreated the name of the parent group so many times, but every time it was a tremendous important asset to our school. They provide resources beyond the classroom, fresh perspective. They help engage students in learning. And so we need to make it a welcoming place for parents. Community schools need to achieve some of that end. Also, when parents have kids who are in smaller classrooms, parent engagement in our district is much greater by definition, because with a smaller pupil-teacher ratio, then teachers can communicate with parents.
All right.
Many high school students.
Thank you very much, Bob. Eloy.
Fred, that's a great question. One of my first actions would be to encourage our school board meetings to actually be held in our school gyms or school cafeterias throughout all of our high schools and middle schools here in Las Cruces. Accessibility of our school board members to all of our parents, our grandparents, and community members is a must, and that needs to be a priority. Again, this is a reminder that school board members are representatives of the districts. They don't just answer to a select group. That being said, revitalizing our PTAs and PTO groups is a must. Or I have heard anecdotal stories that PTOs and PTAs have even have had to be recreated, reimagined, or reinstituted, but they should be a rock-solid, permanent support service for both parents. And lastly, parents and educators are partners of our futures, of our student success. We need to revitalize that as well, Fred.
Okay, we're going to start with you, Eloy, on this next question. How can a Board of Education best communicate with its constituent groups?
Over-communicate. I cannot stress that. Our school board meetings, thankfully, they are streamed live, so there is that accessibility to the school board meetings as they're occurring for all of our community. That's number one. Number two, my comment from earlier, and we can ensure that all of our school board meetings are rotating, if you will, across all of our schools and participating in that. And number three, on a personal level, this is where school board members, being representatives of the district, need to actively reach out to their constituents. It's not just about the 500 or 1,000 or 2,000 voters that elected us. It's all 4,000 voters, or really all of the parents, grandparents, community members within our district that we need to hear from them. At the end of the day, my last quick comment would be ensuring that any decision that I make for policy or resolutions, regulations, I can trace back to input that I have heard from my community.
Thank you. Bob.
Well, through the structures we have in place, parent-teacher groups, student advisory councils, by parents being involved in the community at school events, we communicate with them. Certainly at a sporting event, at a concert, anywhere, a school board member is going to have one-on-one chats with people, and that can be carried back to the board as a whole and also to the superintendent. School boards publish agendas, and we have day-to-day meetings, and by and large, parents are not involved unless the board is not doing a good job. There's too much complacency, and we need to address that to make sure parents are active in their involvement with the school board. And certainly electronic communication is one of those ways, but also through parent involvement on a school-by-school basis, inviting parents to share their concerns on a school building level, and then making sure those ideas are passed along to the school board from administrators and educators so that we have a direct line with parents.
Okay, thank you, Bob. And the next question, Bob, we'll start with you. What should the Las Cruces Public Schools be doing to increase equity for our students?
Well, the recent Yazzie-Martinez decision asks school districts to address the equity issue, which we should do gladly, since making school a more equitable and inviting place for all students creates success for more students. The JBC policy from previous addresses equity and student connection and was established through many committee meetings. And in fact, there are ongoing committee meetings to see how the policy is working with parents, administrators, and teachers all involved. This is what the court has asked us to do. I believe in culturally relevant education, respecting culture, tapping the resources that kids have from their home environments that they bring into the classroom, and encouraging academically challenging curriculum from the basis that they bring in with them. The more diversity we have, the greater the worldview, the more divergent thinking. And so creating opportunities for students that way is positive.
Eloy.
Fred, great question. We have to be careful about equal outcomes versus equal opportunities. Our academic institutions, especially our public schools, need to ensure that academic success of our students are primary, first and foremost, of all of our students, regardless of their background. Las Cruces is a very interesting and highly multi-ethnic community where it is a majority-minority in which 60% of our students are of Hispanic nature. That being said, we need to ensure, similar in the spirit of the Yazzie-Martinez rulings, that all of our students here in Las Cruces have all of the necessary tools and resources in their classrooms for their academic success. We also have to recognize, with regards to what academic success and how it's being measured, over the last handful of years, the graduation rate has hit 90%, but our proficiency rates are in the low 30s. We need to reconcile that. Are we properly preparing our students for their future and their success? So I go back to the comment that equal opportunities need to continue to be expanded in the spirit of Yazzie-Martinez, but with a focus on academic success of our students.
Okay, and Eloy, we'll start with you on this next question. How do you assess the district's safety measures taken to prevent the spread of COVID-19?
No, that's a very great and timely question. Over the last 18 months, we have learned so much on ensuring that we control, this particular pandemic that we're going through. At the same time, we've also starting to see some interesting scientific literature that our school districts need to start digesting and being able to understand and translate that into sound safety policies for our school districts. Also, we have to leverage technology advances, such as the hybrid model that we're also embarking on. That being said, I'm a proponent that parents and educators are the sole decision makers with regards to their health choices. With that being said, though, it doesn't stop the responsibility of the school district, alongside with the superintendent and all the principals, to ensure that we have sound safety guidelines, meaning around facilities cleaning, ensuring that each of our classrooms are safe for our students, and ensuring that we accommodate, if you will, as needed for those parents, teachers, and educators on their health needs.
Thank you. Bob.
Well, I think we need to listen to CDC guidelines and rely on the scientific consensus about how to prevent the spread of COVID-19 and to have safe schools for both students and educators. Some of the American Rescue Plan money has gone to replacing HVAC systems, and there are other monies that we've used to increase the cleanliness of schools. But by and large, this virus is spread via droplets in the air. And so we need to listen to the guidance about mask wearing, and that should be mandatory in our schools until we beat this virus. LCPS has done a great job of keeping our students and educators safe, and we need to continue that. We can't let our guard down and think the Delta variant is the last one. As to wearing masks, we send kids out on the football field every Friday night with helmets, knowing that some of them may get concussions, but we still have them wear helmets because we know that's the safest thing we can do. And so that type of common sense needs to go into our classrooms as well.
Okay, thank you, Bob. And we'll start with you, Bob, on this next question. Las Cruces Public Schools recently increased pay to deal with a shortage of substitute teachers. Pay for full-time teachers is much lower than competing districts in El Paso. What should be done about this, if anything?
Well, clearly New Mexico is behind on teacher salaries, and attracting the best qualified teachers will only happen if we increase our salaries and make them competitive. We're in a staffing crisis in New Mexico. There are thousands of positions that are unfilled. Retention bonuses are one way to try to keep qualified people in the classroom, but we need to attract and retain the most qualified teachers and support professionals. When I started teaching, I think New Mexico was about 23rd in the nation in terms of ranking with salaries. And over the course of my 34-year career, I watched it go down to about the very bottom. Teachers are not only involved in their salaries, we're involved in the lives of our children, but we have electric bills to pay as well. And so if we can focus on paying people across the board, those who clean our building, those who provide lunches, those who are in the classroom with decent salaries. Substitute teachers
Thank you very much. We're out of time. Eloy.
No, that's a great question. In my door walking, if you will, in my district, I have heard from a number of educators echo the concern that the school district does not seem to take into consideration the needs of our educators when it comes to not only their pay raise, but their whole benefits, if you will, call it the benefits package. It is a little troublesome that the school district claims a very high, quote, amount per student on a per yearly basis, but yet we're not seeing those in our classroom. The educators is our first line responder, if you will, when it comes to our classroom. We need to properly ensure that we are supporting the career growth and the career aspirations of our educators. We shouldn't leave them hanging per se, and then to take care of their own level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, if you will, in career path growths, or also maybe helping them out with regards to a master's education as they want to go with a career. A lot of educators are passionate about their profession, and we need to foster that relationship. We need to have their back, Fred.
Okay. We are, believe it or not, at our last question now, and Eloy, we're going to start with you on this. What do you see as the biggest challenge for Las Cruces Public Schools?
It's preparing our students for the future. Fred, the future is here, the future is now. We are in the 21st century. Las Cruces is lagging behind when it comes to not only technology, but preparing our students for what those skills are that they will need to be successful once they graduate high school. So from my perspective, my focus will be to ensure that we have the right programs in place that focus not only academic success, but also on preparing our students for the future so they can be effective in our community, effective citizens, and actively engage post-graduation.
Thank you. Bob.
Well, the biggest challenge always is and has been focusing on student needs and creating opportunities for students to be both nurtured and challenged in our classrooms. Keeping the focus on kids, especially in our current pandemic state. Immediately, we need to come out of this pandemic and address the learning gap that students have had. We have many disengaged students. When I've talked to educators, it is very hard. It's been very hard via Zoom to teach them. And now that we're back in the classroom, I am so glad, because face-to-face learning is what is critical there. We have long-term issues with literacy and numeracy, especially in the early grades. We need to address those. We need to plan for growth in the district in terms of a growing population, long-term building needs. We need to create a community where kids have a sense of belonging. If a child does not connect with a teacher, he or she is much less likely to connect with the curriculum.
Okay,
so,
Bob, thank you very much for that. And we, believe it or not, are out of time. We appreciate you both participating in this forum in conjunction with the League of Women Voters of Southern New Mexico. Bob and Eloy, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us for Election 2021, the Las Cruces School Board Forum for District 3. We've made it through all of the school board races in Las Cruces. Join us next week for a forum with the Las Cruces City Council candidates in District 3. Have a great week.